All right, welcome back, guys. We're going to be doing a rebuild versus resole video. What you need to know on repair and how to make the best of your boots, how to make them last the longest. So we have rebuilding and resoling a pair of boots. They are two different things. So a resole is when we're just taking off the outsole, the heel base, heel cap, and maybe a slip sole if you've got one in there. These V100 lug soles do have a slip sole in there as well. So we're just taking off these parts as well as the heel stack and the heel cap, and that'll get replaced. Now for a rebuild, we are just going to cut this down, cut off the counter here. And the only thing that we really save from these is the uppers and maybe a counter piece in the back if it's still usable. But for the most part, we're just taking the uppers out of there and then we get new lowers sewn on. Now every once in a while we'll get in a boot that is past the point of resoling, but we can still rebuild it. This is one of those examples. As you can see, this person has, pronated out the sides here and we're just going way over that stitch. And so at this point, if we resole them, we really wouldn't even be able to get a line of stitches in there. At that point, we would recommend doing a rebuild on there. So you might ask yourself, at what point is it just not even worth it anymore? When should I get a brand new pair of boots? When we start to see cracking along the stitching or big gashes in here, like sometimes we can cover up some of these with a patch. At this point, that's probably not something that we can cover up with a patch. It's just a very large gash in the boot. So the stitches on the side of the boot need to be intact. If it is dry cracking, like you see some of this one here, at that point we wouldn't even recommend doing the rebuild. Just go ahead and get a new pair of boots. This is an important area to try to take care of if you can. Once this starts to go, there's not a whole lot that we can do. All right, one thing to note when we're taking a look at these stitch lines in here too, some people love to put a little Obenauf's grease on there, which is fine and it's great. The only problem I've seen is people over-oiling them and over-greasing the boots. Occasionally we'll get a boot in store that the customer's like, yeah, I've been taking care of these boots for years now. I just need a rebuild. When we go to rebuild them, there's so much oil packed in here that it's actually a problem. And then when we go to take apart the boot, there is grease residue everywhere. When we're poking the awl through the boots, there's grease that comes out of the leather. So just be careful with how much you grease your boots. Don't overdo it, especially not on the stitches. Just remember that's an integral part of the boot, but also make sure that it's not dry. If you're using something like saddle soap on the boots, make sure that you're conditioning afterwards, because if we're using saddle soap, we're taking the oils out of that leather, so we have to make sure we put them back in. So you might be somebody that burns through the tread on a boot pretty quickly. If you are that person, make sure that you're getting it resoled before it gets to this point. As you can see, this customer, they didn't send their boots in quickly enough. Unfortunately, they went down to the midsole in there, and the heel base is pretty much destroyed on this guy. But once you get down to that midsole, you really need to send them in for a resole, otherwise they're going to have to be rebuilt. Because once you start wearing into the midsole here, it needs a full rebuild. Just because if we put a new sole on there, like how it is now, it's just going to be very wobbly. It's just not going to sit right. So here we have a heel base and a heel cap. Now these are getting put onto the outsole and then sanded down. Occasionally we'll get somebody in that wears out just the heel cap faster than they do the outsole. So what you can do, like let's say you're somebody that just wears down the back of the heel cap a little bit faster, but you still got that full lug tread to use. What we can do is we can just take the heel off, the heel base and cap, and replace it with a new one, sand it down, and then you can get some more life out of the boots. So something to look for with your boots, we do 2 rows of stitching on all of our boots except for one of the women's boots right now. So the reason we do that, we leave a pretty big gap on there, but we do that just so you have more life out of the boots. If we sanded it all the way down, then every time we resole a boot, we have to sand it more. You just get less life out of the boots. So that's why we leave a pretty big gap on here. So you want to make sure you still have something on there so that the boots are resoleable. If you're somebody that stands on your knees a lot, you might be pressing the boot against the floor, you might rub this down. I've seen some guys like, they've got the full edge back here, but the top, they wear it down to the toe. And that's to a point where we can't resole it, we've got to rebuild it. Safety toe boots, definitely a little bit harder to resole. Occasionally when our stitcher is running some of the lines in here, he'll take the last out and he'll push on the toe in order to get more room on the vamp. Now with the safety toe, that's definitely not possible because you press on the vamp, it's not going anywhere. So with safety toe boots, we definitely need to have plenty of room here in order to put new stitch lines in the boot for the outsole. Thanks for watching, guys, and let us know if you enjoyed this kind of content.